SwayamPrabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Namaste, hello everyone. Welcome again to my NPTEL course on interior design. We are at the lecture number 32 today, and we are going to focus on interior design professional practice, specifically talking about codes, bylaws, supervision, and the broad contents, codes of conduct, building bylaws, building codes, norms, some agreements and contracts, supervision, and a set of references. So first of all, we need to understand what is the need for legal regulations and why are we talking about codes and standards and norms and agreements. So today's lecture is heavily theoretical because we are talking about the legal aspects and regulations, but it's important. And also I may not be able to cover a lot of information because it's very vast, but I will just try to give an overview with some cases and examples. So, to date, interior design has not been adequately acknowledged as a profession that requires a distinct set of core competencies that extend well beyond simple decoration. Nor has the broad social and economic impact of the profession been recognized. Yet, the increase in product testing, codes, ergonomics related issues, environmental issues, civil rights legislation, and other government mandates testify to the increased level of knowledge and implementation skills required of the interior design professional. So we have such demands and we have, so many issues and concerns which are on rise. And therefore, it is very, very important to recognize this profession, the skills associated with it, the knowledge associated with it, and, to also come up with important regulations that may safeguard the individual designers and profession as a whole. The prominence of these issues also underscores the need for legal regulations for the interior design profession. The prominence of these issues also underscores the need for legal regulations for the interior design profession. Driven by cultural and societal changes, economic developments, and technological advances, the practice of interior design has become more cognizant of and responsible for public health, safety, welfare. And we also have codes and norms related to each of these, and therefore it is important to understand them. But before that, let's also try to understand what are the codes of conduct, because there are also these codes laid out for how one may conduct themselves as part of this bigger profession. So I must mention the Indian Institute of Interior Designers here, IIIT, and they do have a code of conduct which is a sort of a guiding framework. So when we talk about a member of IIIT, there are certain obligations that need to be kept in mind and fulfilled. Conform to the code of conduct and standards governing the profession in any state of India in which he or she practices. So this is one of the obligations, of course. Maintain satisfactory credit standing as an obligation to the profession. Exercise discretion and dignity. Serve the interests of client and the right of those whose contracts are administered. Preserve confidential information. Refrain from making any statement that unjustifiably injures the reputation of another designer. So, very, very important standards and codes which are set in place. Encourage qualified young people to study interior design, assist those entering the field, contribute to the exchange and advancement of technical information, achieve aims and objectives of the institute, and abide by its constitution, code of conduct, and rules and regulations. When we talk about the associate, affiliate, and fellow members and their responsibility towards public, there is again a code of conduct. Advise compliance with all existing laws, regulations, and codes governing business, procedures, and the practice of interior design. Shall not take any undue action intended to influence the judgment of a public official. Consider the health, safety, and welfare of the public in spaces they design. Make people aware whenever possible of risks, hazards, if existing in built environment. Members shall not seal or sign drawings, specifications, or other interior design documents except where the member or the member's firm has prepared, supervised, or professionally reviewed and approved such documents. This is very, very important. Shall not engage in any form of false or misleading advertising or promotional activities. Then there are responsibilities towards clients and customers. Members' contractual agreement with the client shall clearly set forth the scope and nature of the project involved. Shall not undertake any professional responsibility unless they are, by training and experience, competent to adequately perform the work required. Members shall fully disclose to a client all compensation which the member shall receive in connection with the project. Shall not divulge any confidential information about the client or the client's project, or utilize photographs or specifications of the project without the express permission of the client. This is very, very important, and therefore I am highlighting it. And of course, I am not able to present or show or discuss all the clauses, but I have just picked up some important ones. And about the copyright issues and whether to share photographs or not, and mention the specifications of the project until and unless the client has permitted or there is enough time spent and we are at a stage that it could be utilized and showcased. So we have to keep this in mind. It's all about ethics. Members shall act in the best interest of their clients, maintain sound professional relationships with suppliers, industry, and trades to ensure the best service possible to the clients. So it's not only about design, it's also about service, and it's very important that we provide that to the best of our capability and potential to the clients. Then there is responsibility towards other professional members. Members shall not interfere with the performance of another professional member's contractual or professional relationship with the client on the job assigned. Members shall not attempt directly or indirectly to supplant another member by means of unfair inducements. Members may, when requested and when it does not present a conflict of interest, render a second opinion to a client or serve as an expert witness in a judicial or arbitration proceeding. So these are the kinds of rules, as part of this code of conduct, and it helps a lot. It safeguards the profession, all stakeholders involved, ensures timely execution, and takes care of any legal aspects if they may unfortunately arise. Then there is responsibility towards suppliers of goods and services. So it's the entire value chain, it's all the stakeholders which have been mapped, and the importance of each one of those and responsibility of members of IIIT and all involved towards each of these stakeholders. Members shall offer equal and fair opportunity to suppliers of goods and services, shall endeavor to see that suppliers get a fair compensation for their supply, and shall discharge their obligations in good and proper time. Also by giving appropriate credits to suppliers of goods and services where due. And of course, the biggest responsibility is towards the profession itself. Members shall maintain standards of professional and personal conduct, contribute to the upgradation of the profession through dissemination of information and positive and active support to the institute, triple ID. Then there are codes for the trade members, and here specifically focusing on manufacturers and suppliers, and specially talking about responsibility towards public. Comply with all existing laws, regulations, and codes governing business procedures as established by the central or state government or other jurisdiction. Shall not take any undue action intended to influence the judgment of a public official. So, very, very important. Members shall at all times consider the health, safety, and welfare of the public when supplying materials or services. So, we have been talking about importance of selecting materials, having proper services, ensuring good quality of air and good, indoor environment quality, safety, health, welfare of the people who are using it, who are inhabiting the spaces designed by the designers. So it's important that we consider these aspects. And they are recognized as part of bylaws and codes and norms, because increasingly we are facing the environment related concerns, the safety related concerns. Moving on, shall not engage in any form of false or misleading advertising or promotional activities, shall exercise discretion and dignity in their general business conduct, provide all possible information and technical data about their products and services correctly. So, this is also very crucial. Now, I'm talking about responsibility towards clients and customers, still focusing on the code of conduct for trade members and especially manufacturers and suppliers. So, members' contractual agreement with the client customer shall clearly set forth the type and quality of materials and services to be supplied, rates to be charged, and delivery schedule and terms of business. So, these are all laid out properly. Members shall not offer any form of undisclosed compensation to any person or firm with whom the member deals in connection with the project. Shall not divulge any confidential information about the client or the client's project without the express permission of the client or the customer. Shall be candid and truthful in all their business communications. So again, ethics matter a lot. And these are also carried forward by word of mouth. And the way you demonstrate your attitude, ethics, design abilities, sensitivity towards the clientele's need will take you a long way in procuring, lots of projects and respectable position in the profession. Members shall act with fiscal responsibility in the best interest of their clients and customers. Shall endeavor to ensure that the agents or dealers appointed by them charge a fair and reasonable price, shall not withhold or suppress stocks of goods, shall maintain accuracy in weights and measures of goods. Now I'm talking about responsibility towards other trade members. Members shall not attempt directly or indirectly to supplant another member by means of unfair inducements, shall not knowingly entertain any business propositions upon which another member has been involved. So, of course, we are talking about a lot of theoretical constructs over here, and like I said, it's very important being a part of the profession and education focusing on interior design. Members shall not initiate or participate in any discussion or activity which might result in an unjust injury to another trade member's reputation or business relationships directly or indirectly. When requested, and if it does not present a conflict of interest, render a second opinion to a client or customer, or serve an expert witness in a judicial or arbitration proceeding. Only when there is no conflict of interest and it is ethical to do so. Now I'm talking about responsibilities towards interior designers. Members shall act with fairness and integrity when dealing with an interior designer. They shall endeavor to see that the supplies made are of required quality and standard at fair price, fair business practice. Shall provide correct information, technical data, facts, and figures. There is responsibility towards the trade. Members shall maintain standards of business and personal conduct that will reflect in a responsible manner on the institute, industry, and the trade as a whole. Members shall seek to continually upgrade their products and services. So, the trade members, of course, have a lot of responsibility towards the trade itself. Contribute to the upgradation of the interior furnishing industry and trade through dissemination of information. So, the overall objective is, of course, contributing to the upgradation of the industry as a whole, focusing on interior design, interior furnishing, interior architecture. Then we are talking about code of conduct for trade members, focusing on interior furnishing contractors. And here we are talking about responsibility towards public. Members shall comply with all existing laws, regulations, and codes governing business procedures as established by central or state government or other jurisdiction in which the members conduct business activities. Members shall at all times consider the health, safety, and welfare of the public when executing or handling any interior furnishing jobs, and shall make people aware whenever possible of the risks or hazards if involved. Shall not take any undue action intended to influence the judgment of a public official. Some of these clauses you may find are slightly repetitive, but as part of different sections within this code of conduct and as part of responsibility towards different stakeholders, they are reiterated at places. Now, the responsibility towards clients and customers, still focusing on the interior furnishing contractors as part of the code of conduct for trade members. Members shall charge only fair and reasonable price from their clients. They shall be candid and truthful in all their business communications. Members' contractual agreement with the client shall clearly set forth the scope and nature of work involved, type and quality of materials to be used, services to be performed, contract rates, completion schedule, terms of payment, and terms governing any disputes concerning the contract. So these are all very crucial aspects, and in case of any sort of a legal aspect, any legal concern, this kind of contractual agreement helps putting things in perspective and resolving the matters. Now I'm talking about responsibility towards other trade member. Members shall not initiate or participate in any discussion or activity which might result in an unjust injury to another trade member's reputation or business, directly or indirectly. Responsibility towards interior designers while focusing on interior furnishing contractors. Members shall act with fairness and integrity when dealing with an interior designer. They shall endeavor to see that the supplies and services rendered are of required quality and standard, at fair price as per agreed delivery schedule and terms of contract, in a spirit of fair business practice. Members shall not offer unfair inducements to an interior designer or his employees to secure business or any favor directly or indirectly. Members shall provide correct information about their capacity, capability, resources, experience, and expertise to the interior designer. Members shall not offer their services under a turnkey contract to include interior design consultancy services to any prospective client unless the member is a qualified interior designer or has on his staff or has employed the services of a qualified interior designer. I have highlighted the turnkey contract over here. So the turnkey interior design projects are very much in demand. And just to put things very loosely and in very simplistic terms, it's just like, you have this project where you turn the key and move in and everything is just ready. So the construction, the furnishings, the furniture, everything, and you could just move in and start living. So those are the kinds of projects which are in demand, of course. And the interior design industry currently is governed and run by the demand for turnkey solutions and turnkey projects. Now I'm talking about the responsibility towards the vocation. Members shall endeavor to contribute to the upgradation of the interior furnishing industry and trade through dissemination of information, seek to continually upgrade their products and services, technical knowledge, and competency with respect to interior furnishing. So, like I said, some of the clauses may be, reiterated, and not all the clauses I was able to mention because of the shortage of time. But it's important to focus on these codes of conduct and just have an awareness, keeping in mind the overview of the institute and focus that I talked about, triple ID, and in general, also look at the worldview and global discourse, focusing on codes of conduct when we talk about interior design. So, now I'm going to briefly talk about building bylaws and building codes. Now, that's also very, very intensive and exhaustive, and I cannot cover everything possible, but I've just tried to put a few cases and examples over here. So this is interior architecture building codes, and I'm talking about the case of United Kingdom. So in the United Kingdom, building regulations are a set of national norms and procedures governing the construction and design of buildings, including interior areas, much like we do it in India also and other parts of the world. The purpose of these laws is to ensure that buildings are safe, accessible, and energy efficient. Plus, they fulfill specified construction and design criteria. So, safety is paramount, accessibility is very important, and energy efficiency, of course, and more so because we are talking about climate change and need for sustainable practices. So, these are important. Of course, in the case of United Kingdom and also when we will come to India. Building laws in the UK mandate that all structures be planned and constructed to avoid the risk of fire. So that's another important aspect. And ensure that inhabitants may evacuate safely in the unfortunate event of a fire. This entails fire doors, fire escapes, smoke detectors, fire resistant materials. The building codes also mandate that structures are accessible to all residents, including people with impairments. This includes standards such as wheelchair accessibility, accessible restrooms, also suitable signage and information architecture. It's very, very important. Interior architects must verify that all interior elements, including walls, floors, ceilings, are structurally sound and they meet minimum strength and stability requirements. Until and unless they meet these standards, of course, they cannot go ahead with construction. Now, they also talk about ventilation and insulation. So, building codes mandate that all structures be adequately vented and insulated in order to maintain a comfortable interior climate and reduce energy usage. So that's also very important. Electrical and plumbing systems. Interior architects are responsible for ensuring that all electrical and plumbing systems adhere to a set of minimum safety and efficiency criteria. So again, safety is very important. Interior architects in the UK must be knowledgeable about the building bylaws and regulations that apply to their specific projects in order to design and create interior spaces that are safe, accessible, adhere to specified minimum construction and design requirements. Now let's talk about the case of India and of course it's also global discourse, because what we are following and practicing in India is much in alignment with the global practice also. The main aspects covered by the building bylaws: affordable housing norms, update required for the National Building Code NBC by BIS, the Bureau of Indian Standards, parking loading zones, residential and commercial setbacks, stipulations and standards for high rise buildings. Then, of course, there are, code for green building standards such as Griha and LEED. We have talked about Griha and LEED, during lectures on green interiors. Sanctioning building plans for ease of doing business, basement standards, rainwater and sewage treatment plans, update the fire norms, provision for safety by considering the stairs and exit ways. Now, what is NBC, the National Building Code that I just mentioned? So, there are some key concepts that will help us understand what this code is all about. Administrative regulations, general building requirements and growth control rules, fire safety requirements, very important. We are seeing the mention of fire safety requirements again and again. Stipulations regarding building materials. So, building materials, of course, another important parameter. Structural strength, structure. Sanitary and plumbing services, landscaping and outdoor structures, construction and building management, and of course, sustainability. There is also the Model Building Bylaws, MBBL, which is set by the Town and Country Planning Organization, and it also has some key focus areas. So, increasing environmental factors, growing safety and security measures, new innovations and technological developments, government's initiatives such as the Swachh Bharat Mission, and emphasis on ease of doing business. And there are more salient features when we talk about the MBBL 2016, which is focused on India and is aligned with the global discourse when we talk about interior architecture building codes. So, provisioning safety and security, that is the most important one. This includes structural design safety, prevention measures and proof checking, also disaster management. Then another salient feature would be easy accessibility. So, providing facilities like access path, walkway, stairs, lifts, toilets suitable and safe for children, elderly, the physically abled, differently abled. Environmental issues. This ensures to cater sustainability and green buildings and introduces rainwater harvesting, recycling services, solar rooftop installations, and more. So, we are talking about these aspects related to environment again and again, during different lectures, focusing on important aspects such as reduce, reuse, recycle, and many more concepts related to sustainability. And we see that they are also endorsed by these codes and laws, and we are encouraged by enforcement to follow this also as responsibility and design sensitivity. The implication of government initiatives such as Swachh Bharat Mission, it entails hygienic sanitation facilities for women and segregated toilet facilities for the general public at large. So, this part is very important because a lot of such facilities, especially for women, are absent in the public domain and they need to be focused upon. Adoption of the latest technology. Additional provisions for high-rise buildings in structural safety, fire safety, and disaster management. So, we are seeing the mention of these two also quite often. Proficiency in approvals. It includes an integrated approach for online approvals and automated systems of plan scrutiny for commercial building plans. This is very, very important because it makes everything transparent, it makes things, on a fast track, and we are able to keep a track of, what is happening as part of the process and at what stage, the so to say file is moving and we can get these approvals done. Now let's talk about some fire safety norms because we are talking about fire safety as crucial, when we are looking at all these codes and bylaws. So when we talk about fire safety norms, of course they focus on life safety goals and these three important aspects, which is protection of life, protection of property, restoration and use of the building after a fire. So these are very important. As a designer, one needs to know the different types of devices and appropriate locations based on code requirements. So when we talk about fire safety norms, this is our responsibility. Then let me also talk a bit about the concept of compartmentalization. It's a crucial concept within life safety. It aims to contain a fire and limit its spread with a dual objective of allowing occupants to escape the building and protecting the unaffected parts of the building. So this is very important when we talk about fire safety norms, to understand compartmentalization and the twofold objective it serves. It could be achieved structurally through door ratings, floor ceiling assemblies, fire rated walls, fire separations. Life safety equipment includes the following. So it could largely include these and more, which are not listed here, but mostly these. So exit signs, ceiling mounted or door mounted, emergency lighting, audible, visible fire alarms, fire extinguishers, of course, smoke detectors, and sprinkler systems. Now let's talk about fire separation and within that, fire partition. A fire partition is a wall with a fire resistance rating of 1 hour. So we have to understand these kinds of practices and ratings which are available, and we could utilize them as designers, to ensure the fire safety norms. Now, most common fire partitions are used in the locations which I am going to show in an overview manner in the subsequent slides. So, corridor walls, elevator lobby, high-rise buildings. It's very important to focus on high-rise buildings and, adhere to fire safety norms. And when we are talking about high-rise buildings, we are here particularly talking about I2 and I3 occupancies. So I2, buildings and structures used for medical care on a 24-hour basis for more than 5 persons who are incapable of self-preservation. I3, buildings and structures inhabited by more than 5 persons under restraint or security. Then there are walls separating dwelling units such as apartments and dorms. Then there are walls separating guest rooms in residential and institutional occupancies. And when we talk about residential, we are particularly talking about R1 and R2. So occupancies containing sleeping units where the occupants are primarily transient in nature is R1. And the occupancies containing sleeping units or more than 2 dwelling units where the occupants are primarily permanent in nature. So R1 and R2 specifically. And we are talking about I1 when we are addressing the institutional occupancies. So buildings, structures or portions for more than 16 persons, excluding staff who reside on a 24-hour basis in a supervised environment and receive custodial care. There are also walls separating tenants in covered shopping malls. So these are the different locations. Then there is fire barrier. A fire barrier is a vertical or horizontal structure that is fire resistance rated and specially designed to confine fire and allow for safe passage. A fire barrier offers a higher level of protection than a fire partition because it is continuous from the floor slab to the underside of the floor or roof above. So this is much better in terms of performance and safety. Fire barriers are used to enclose stairways, exit passageways, horizontal exits, incidental use areas, separate different occupancies in mixed use occupancies, separate single occupancies into different fire areas. I would also like to talk about egress. It is synonymous with exiting, so one will often come across the term means of egress. So when we talk about fire safety norms, we will come across the term egress. It must be continuous, unobstructed, and possible from any point in a building. This is very, very important for designers to understand and practice. Egress leads to a public way, a public area outside that is a minimum of 10 feet wide. Some examples could include a street, alleyway, or park. So when we look at the egress, it has essentially three parts: exit access, the exit itself, and the exit discharge. This is the case of exit access. This is the exit, and here is the exit discharge. Exit access, the portion that leads to the exit. Exit access can include aisles, corridors, hallways, intermediate rooms. Exit access may or may not be fire protected, but the critical thing to remember is that the length of the exit access is measured and regulated as per the codes and norms. Exit, the portion that provides a protected path between the exit access and the discharge. Exits must be fully enclosed and made of fire resistive construction, walls, doors, windows. They are either 1 hour or 2 hour rated depending on the building specifics. So that kind of rating has to be adhered to. Exit discharge, the portion between the exit and the public way. While they are usually outside, common exit discharges include balconies and exterior stairways. So when we talk about the egress pathway, we must try to create it very safely, and we could define the exit pathway, and we have to clear the exit pathway for a proper navigation, marking it properly through suitable signage, and also choosing luminous egress path markings. That could be another strategy. So this could be used for creating a safe egress pathway. Now talking briefly about types of contracts in interior design and some important business agreements, because we did also see a mention of contracts and agreements as part of triple ID code of conduct, and there are basic contracts when we talk about the practice of interior design, and there are some important business agreements which we could try to understand in a broad sense. So there are three contract types to begin with: the basic, the advanced, and the final. So the basic contract includes layout design, elevation drawings, furniture layout, structural details, working drawings. I've put this in a very overview manner through bullet points, and of course it can be understood in much more elaborate manner, and you are free to write to me in that case. The advanced contract. This contract includes the visits as well, which means supervision of the design. Along with these, furniture layout, structure details plus working drawings, even the selection of materials, tiles, slides, color scheme. Top level supervision, which earmarks certain number of visits, layout design, elevations. Then there is the final contract. This type of contract holds everything from the above to with free consultations in the future as well. So layout design, elevation, furniture layout, structure plus working drawing, selection of materials, complete supervision with a very comprehensive number of visits, including free consultations in a future roadmap, once the design is also done, keeping connected with the client and the needs. There are also some more kinds of contracts, and I've just put here a graphic, which is, of course, borrowed from a source with due credit, but those three were the basic ones to understand. So there are more kinds of contracts, and time and material contract, retail or markup contract. So when we were trying to understand the costing of interior design projects, we did come up with terms like markup and cost plus, material contract, labor contract. So some of these are shown over here, and actually there could be more orders or classification, but I have put some simple ones here. Now let's try to understand, some of the business agreements and contracts. So there is this preliminary agreement, then there is a contract which has a lot of details within it. So fee schedule, maximum hour allocation, litigation agreement as part of the contract, additional fees clause, detailed scope, deliverables provided, product purchase protections, also termination agreement as part of this contract. Then there is something known as alternative agreement, subcontractor agreement, and non-disclosure agreement. So preliminary agreement outlines the services one plans to provide during the consultation, as well as any fees associated with them. Then there is the contract. It saves one from getting stuck in projects drawn out by indecisive clients, and it will protect the business from loss or potential legal action. So it covers these main points. There is fee schedule, a list of all possible fee that the client could incur during their project. Maximum hour allocation, the maximum amount of hours that one devotes to a project for the amount that the client paid. Because this is very important, we are usually underpaid and overworked, but the contract specifies here the maximum amount of hours a designer could devote to a project in relation to the amount that is paid by the client. Litigation agreement. What will happen when the contract is breached or broken? That is a part of the litigation agreement. Then there is additional fee. How and when will one charge for additional services? This may include an explanation of the hourly rate that one will charge for things like project management and installations. Detailed scope, what the designer is responsible for and what not. And the deliverables provided, what items are planned to be provided to the client. Product purchase protections. Who is responsible for damage claims, shipping, receiving, installation, how these items will be addressed. And termination agreement, how each party can legally exit the agreement. Then there is alternative agreement. While the contract is meant to provide thorough protection, sometimes priorities change once a project is underway. Situations like this call for an alternative agreement. It is a supplementary document that is added while a project is in progress. Then we have subcontractor agreement. This is important. Like an alternative agreement, a subcontractor agreement is not always needed for every job. We could think of it as a form of insurance for our business. It is not necessary to create one if the client plans to pay a subcontractor directly for their work. but it gives a lot of clarity, and it's important to lay out things, very, very crystal clear. This agreement should explain how you plan to work with the subcontractor, pricing procedures, and how you plan to handle payments, responsibilities of each party. That's why I said it's very, very important. And then there is this non disclosure agreement. NDA outlines what information can be shared by the parties who sign it. In the interior design industry, it is usually used to prohibit photography of private locations, custom products, and incomplete designs. So, we were talking about this under the codes of conduct as well. An NDA may accompany the subcontractor agreement if required. So, we are talking about norms, we are talking about codes, we are talking about bylaws, and we are talking about safety. So, this one quote I just felt like putting over here and sharing with all of you. Safety should never be a priority, it should be a precondition. And that's very important for interior designers and interior architects to understand when we are working on projects. Some of the references I have listed over here. Thank you so much.